Disasters halfway around the world can easily wreak havoc on a company's supply chain. Those companies can employ hundreds of contractors and subcontractors, but they often have a hard time figuring out exactly who makes their products. One company is hoping to change that. Leonardo Bonanni is the founder and CEO of Sourcemap, a social network for supply chains. Amanda spoke with him recently and asked him how the service works.
Okay, well, Sourcemap is a website that's dedicated to answering the question of where things come from. It is a crowdsourcing platform like Wikipedia, except instead of encyclopedia articles, there are thousands of maps showing the sources of the raw materials behind everyday products, and in many cases also the associated social, environmental, and financial costs.
So let's talk about sort of how this works. Obviously, if I'm a business and I have suppliers, I know who my primary suppliers are. What's the kind of beauty of Sourcemap when it comes to identifying all of the other tiers of suppliers?
Well, that all came to light with the Fukushima disaster in 2011 in Japan. A lot of car factories shut down a few weeks later when they stopped receiving critical parts, and they realized that they don't have visibility into the suppliers' suppliers. So Sourcemap works like a social network for the supply chain, a lot like LinkedIn. Companies invite their direct suppliers, who then invite their suppliers and their suppliers' suppliers, and within a matter of days or weeks, a company has visibility into the real source of the raw materials.
And how do they use that information? Can you give me an example of kind of some of the connections or benefits that a company would get from having all of that at their disposal?
Absolutely. I mean, companies are realizing that if they don't know their extended supply chain, they really can't ensure the continuity of their business. And so they're using it primarily to ensure that when the next natural or man-made disaster happens, that they're going to be able to continue to serve their customers' products. But they're also using it for quality to make sure that food and pharmaceuticals are safe and authentic. And they're using it for sustainability to make sure that disasters like the factory collapse in Bangladesh last year don't ever happen again.
There's an element of this that's sort of crowdsourcing. How does that play in, and how can businesses use it in an ongoing way, not just to establish what their network is, but actually to sort of reach the network?
That's right. Well, we're finding that a major modern corporation might have hundreds of thousands of suppliers in its supply chain. So that really takes a complete rethinking of the way that companies work together. And what we have is a crowdsourcing platform where you can invite anybody, including suppliers, but also government representatives, cooperatives, even in some cases farmers themselves, to contribute data. And that's the only way that a modern company can really see all the way through its supply chain. And
so when you do that, when you open it up, as in many parts of social networking or the internet, it does raise the question of the credibility of the information you're getting. What do you do about that?
That's right. Well, for the first time ever, companies are seeing into their supply chains. And along with that data, they're getting a lot of interesting verification that they can finally do. For example, we track the GPS coordinates, the names, the phone numbers of all the people who are submitting data. So for the first time, they can send auditors into the supply chain. They can have double-blind verification, and they can be sure, because they can crowdsource the information from more than one person, that these are actually the companies involved in manufacturing products.
Now, when we look back at an incident like Fukushima, and I've seen you use the example of the auto industry that didn't realize that so many of them were relying on just a few suppliers and that would become a critical choke point. It's easy to look back and see that. Are companies pretty good once they've created this source map at looking forward and finding those kinds of choke points and actually anticipating where problems might lie?
That's right. That's the real strength here, is that we're taking technology that was originally developed for Facebook or Twitter, which is to say the ability to stay in contact in real time with millions of people halfway around the world, and we're deploying it inside companies and inside their supply chains. So they don't just create a map, they create a living social network where at any time they can stay aware of risks that are coming, and they can be in constant communication with their suppliers, no matter how far they are.
Now, that could be two ways, right? Is this an opportunity for suppliers to actually be more empowered with the either the producer in the case of manufacturers, or it could even be, say, a retailer? Is there a new relationship that you could help foster?
Absolutely. Well, we're seeing the companies that are working with Sourcemap that are asking for more transparency from their suppliers. They're favoring those suppliers that are willing to comply and share more information, and share information not just about their ability to deliver products on time, but also their ability to deliver environmentally and socially conscious products.
Let's talk about whether anybody else is doing this, Leonardo. Are there other companies out there developing similar products?
You know, until now, the space was dominated by consultancies and by the stable, solid supply chain management software companies that have been traditionally more focused on getting orders out and getting them fulfilled. So this is the first time that social media is being used to map supply chains, and honestly, it's the first time many of these companies have realized the importance of having a comprehensive map of their global operations.
All right, and tell me where the business is, Sourcemap, in terms of your financing. What stage are you at?
You know, we're in a great position. We've been bootstrapped since day one when I spun it out of MIT. We have about 25 major multinationals working with us right now, and a team of 10 enthusiastic developers between Boston and New York.
All right, we got to leave it there. Leonardo, appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Amanda.
Leonardo Bonanni is founder and CEO of Sourcemap.